Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenya Revolutionary. I'm here to speak to you maybe within the next hour, for an hour, or less than that. Just depends how the day goes, okay? By the way, karibuni sana. It's happy Furahi Day for all of you who are across the world, whether you're in Asia, Europe, Africa, Kenya to be specific, America, Middle East, whichever way, Antarctica. Karibuni sana, karibuni sana, karibuni sana. Now, before we get started, as you can see this topic, we have an IEBC in place, Independent Electoral Boundary Commission, which, for those of you who don't know, are usually the body, independent body that's supposed to be overseeing or, conducting this electoral process, process, okay? So if you want to, if you are going to vote or we are going to want to recall an representative, whether it's MCA, woman rep, whatever the case is, this is the body that actually oversees the process. They kind of responsible for, making sure that the ballots are okay, the paper ballots are counted well and all that stuff. You know the drill, okay? So now we have the court upheld the decision that these guys were, ready to go basically, and confirmed them. So there was a gazette notice put in place. And as I speak right now, the Erastus, forgot his last name, who is going to be the commissioner, chief commissioner, whatever the case is going to be the guy who announces the winner of presidential election. And maybe some, I know presidential election, I'm not sure about the other positions. But anyway, regardless, the IEBC is in place. But here's the thing, though, because I see a lot of people now asking these questions that are the question that I am posing as the topic of the day. Like I say, let me just read it for you in case you didn't read the topic. We have an IEBC in place. Which MP or senator do we recall first? Because that seems to be the conversation now that we have an IEBC. Who do we recall first? Now, before I get started to delve into the topic, please, if this is your first time, my name is Kenya Revolutionary. This channel is about Kenyan politics and the world politics as it relates to Kenya. If you haven't subscribed and you like talking about this kind of topic, please do not hesitate. Take your sweet old time. Actually, do not hesitate. Hit that subscribe button, subscribe and share. Put the notification on. Tell your friends about the channel, and I'll always drop the link if you want to chime in and give your opinion on the issue. Okay? If you're already a subscriber, you've subscribed and you know the drill, you know the first order of business is what? Like the video, and also just to make sure your notification button is on, so every time I come in, you can always find me here. Ama namna gani? Okay, let's get to the topic. There's a lot of topics, but I will just stick to the main one, which is the IEBC. And also I will touch on a little bit. Gachagua is in Seattle. I told you guys there's a couple of places that, majority of Kenyans always reside when they go to the US. It was either going to Boston or Seattle, Washington, which he arrived in Washington. I saw the pictures. So forth. We'll just talk about Gachagua a little bit, but the main focus is the IEBC, okay? Now that we are going to have an IEBC, there's a talk. People are asking themselves, who should we recall first, okay? Now, another thing that needs to be clarified before we get to the IEBC, okay? One thing that needs to be qualified. Karibu sana, Annie, nice seeing you. One thing that needs to be clarified is when do we actually have to have the next general elections? Remember that question that Willie Sotieno kind of posed, and it drew national attention. People started debating about this. This has to be clarified by the courts. Somebody needs to petition in the courts so we can have a clarification whether we are going to have a general election in 2026 or 2027, because it plays a part with what is happening right now with regard to the newly appointed IEBC. I'll tell you how that's all connected, okay? Now, it's simple and clear, okay? This is how simple it is. I think it is the Elections Act or IEBC Act, one of the above, one of the laws in the law. I'll give you the real quote in a few minutes. Not the real quote, but the real law, okay, that's in the books today. You cannot recall an MP or a senator, okay, or any representative for that matter, 12 months before the next general elections. You understand? You cannot. That's the law on the land of the books. That's the law today on the books. You can not recall any representative, MP or senator 12 months before the next general election. So the reason why I'm saying we should get a clear clarification as to when are we going to have the next election as per the Constitution, because there are people who are arguing that the next election should be held in 2026 and not 2027, because that will actually, according to the law, it says the first Tuesday of, the fourth year. Okay, so then there's a debate when the fourth year starts. Okay, because there are people are counting from the day the president gets inaugurated, because that's the day that he actually assumes office. And there are those who argue that it doesn't matter whether the president assumes office, the new president, the newly elected president assumes office, 4 months into the new term. The Constitution is very clear that the fourth year, the first Tuesday of the fourth year, or whatever the case is, that's when the election should be taking place. Okay, so it doesn't matter. So there's this debate. That's why I'm saying, if we are going to have the next general election in 2026, which is next year, and I'm one of those who actually say that if we are to follow the Constitution, what it says, then we're supposed to have the next general election in 2026. Okay? If we are to follow the Constitution, okay? So, if we are going to have the election in 2026, August, next year, okay? That means we have basically 1 month window, a month between now up to August 9th of next month to recall an MP or senator or any representative. Okay? We have basically 1 month, less than a month, because today is what? Today is 11th, depending where you are. Today is the 11th, okay? So that means you have less than a month to recall these MPs if we are going to have the next general election in August of next year. Okay? Because once we get to August 9th of next year, or the first Tuesday of August next month, then legally, according to our laws in place, we cannot recall these senators or MPs. Does that mean that these guys actually delayed the constituting of the IEBC in order to save these senators and MPs that they know are not popular with the people? Was that something done deliberately by these political oligarchs, the political class, the colonial stooges? Could it be? I think so, if you ask me. Now, that is why I'm saying it is important for us to get a clarification from the courts when we are actually going to have the next general election. Is it going to be on 2026, the first Tuesday of 2026, given the fact that if you count the first Tuesday on the fourth year since the last general election, it comes down to 2026, August of next year, okay? It makes 4 years, okay? Now, if you count up to 2027, that means Ruto will be serving 1 extra year, which is contrary to what the Constitution says when the general election should be held, okay? And that also determines whether we have, we are within the window, according to the law, in which we can recall these MPs or senators. You understand what I'm saying? I hope I'm not speaking French. That's real simple, okay? So, with that said, one thing that I would say is this. Even though now we have an IEBC in place, this is another argument that will be used to delay the recall of these senators and MPs that the people want out of office. This is one of the main reasons that they will use to actually delay the process of recall by the people, recalling these senators. This is what they'll argue. They will simply say, because now I can see people on Twitter say, okay, who should we start with, Pasaris or whatever, to answer recall? The IEBC will now, they will argue very soon, and you'll hear this argument in the next few weeks, or if not tomorrow, by today or later on. They will say they are not ready. They are not well equipped. They are not prepared yet to oversee any electoral process, whether it's a process of recalling the MPs or senators. By the way, it spells out, I forgot which article it is, but I think, is it Article 96 or 97 of the Constitution? I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But it actually spells out how the process is done, the recalling process. Basically, you need some signatures of the members of the particular constituency who want to recall that specific MP or representative, let me just say, MP or senator, whatever the case is, okay? You collect a couple of signatures and you take it to the IEBC so that they verify it, and the process begins. When I'm declare I'm a recall or whatever the case is. It spells it out in that scenario. Just do a simple Google search, you'll find it, okay? But like I said, knowing the political oligarchs, this political class, Kenyan corrupt political class, what they will do, they will influence the IEBC to argue, to make an argument that the IEBC is not ready. They're not well equipped. They need more time to get their stuff together in order to oversee the process of recalling of an MP or general election for that matter, okay? Now, again, I know some people are excited about this news because now, like I say, they're excited that they can actually take action and try to recall these MPs. I'm not excited about this news because to me it makes no difference. I've always argued here, and I've argued here numerous times, okay? Saying that, number one, the IEBC is nothing. This IEBC is nothing but a bunch of individuals that have been handpicked by William Samoei Ruto and Raila Odinga to actually rig the coming elections, okay, in their favor. So while we can use this IEBC to try to recall these MPs and senators that we do not like, the problem is, even though we might gather signatures and present them to this IEBC, I kid you not, and I can bet my money on it, I'll tell you this without batting an eyelid, this IEBC, if you dare recall somebody like Pasaris or somebody who is part of the favorites of the political class, the IEBC shall say that they do not have the capability yet to recall these senators or MPs or members of parliament or governors or whatever the case, whoever you want to recall or whoever you want to impeach. Well, impeachment is different from recalling, okay? I'm talking about MPs. I think recalling an MP and MPs and senators and these representatives, that's when the people can recall. As far as the governors and all that stuff, I think that's through impeachment. I don't think they get removed through recalling them. But anyway, the point I'm making is this. Even though some people in some quarters are excited with this news of the IEBC being reconstituted, okay, being in place, that still does not make any difference, in my opinion, as I've mentioned, argued that if you start recalling the process of recalling Esther Passaris, for example, you start gathering signatures and all that stuff, and you present it to the IEBC and say, hey, listen, I have 300,000 signatures that have signed, trying to recall Esther Passaris. The IEBC, as it is right now, they will argue that. They will dilly-dally, because that's the name of the game. They will dilly-dally and say that, oh, you know what, that's well and good, but unfortunately, we just got into the office. We still lack the manpower and the capability to verify these signatures. So give us 6 months or 1 year, or whatever the case is, so we can get our shit together before we actually are ready to, oversee this process, okay? So that's the argument that they will use, because it is just today that they are. Because you have to ask yourself, this reconstitution of the IEBC, when was it supposed to be done? It was supposed to be done immediately after Chebukati left. Even before Chebukati left. This is something that should have been done before Chebukati and the gangs, before their tenure was over. But it was delayed for years, not a year, years, okay? Why? It was done deliberately to make sure that these representatives that we know are not popular with the people can have time in office and enjoy their huge salaries, okay? Sitting there doing nothing at the Senate or at the representative or at the legislative body, okay? Of course, we know that they lack legitimacy because the people spoke out on June 25th, June 25th, 2024, last year, when they went and renewed the parliament, when they occupied parliament. That was an indictment to the legislative body, basically telling them that you can F off, you guys are not representing our interests, you're not legislating, nor are you doing the oversight that you're supposed to do, oversighting over, whether it's the governor, the governors out there, or the executive branch of government. You're not doing none of that. Okay. Instead, you're working in tandem with the executive, with these governors, taking bribes, doing all sorts of things, doing all these criminal acts, getting embroiled in every whatever imaginable, okay? Controversy and saga, scandal, you can imagine, okay? Whether it's somebody shooting somebody, when somebody is stealing money, or whatever the case is. We know the deal in Kenya. We know the deal. We are not new in this Kenya. We know how politics works, okay? So that's why I'm saying, while it seems like good news that now we finally have IEBC in place where we can actually try to remove these people, I have a caveat on that. There's a caveat on that. That's what I'm saying. The tricky part of it is that even though we have an IEBC in place, if we want to recall these MPs, we have to go back to the books. We have to go back to our constitution. We have to have a clarification by the judiciary. Okay? We have to have a clarification from the courts to clarify when are we going to have the next general elections, because like I said, if we are going to have election next year, which is the first Tuesday of August, that means we have only less than 1 month window to recall these MPs and senators. And most likely, we are not going to be able to actually start this process because the IEBC will argue that we just got into office, we are not well equipped, we don't have the capability or capacity to actually conduct this process of recalling these senators. We can't verify, we don't have the manpower, we don't, they'll argue that way. So that's why these people deliberately delay the reconstitution of this IEBC. Karibu sana, Brother Benson, I see you on the chat. I'm glad to see you. I hope you're doing well. For those of you who do not know Brother Benson, he has a political channel similar to this, much more exciting than me, because he has guests there where he can talk about politics. So please take a moment and go to his channel, Brother Benson Media, and subscribe, share, like, comment, and do all the good stuff. Amanam Nagan. Thank you so much. So that's the argument. So while this news seems to be good news to majority of Kenyans, there's a trick behind it. You're still, wamejua, unajua watu wamejua law, what the law says. So while we are jumping up and down saying, oh, IEBC has been reconstituted, whatever the case is. Now, regarding elections, I want to speak about this coming, if we are going to have an election, okay? And I'm talking about the general election, whether it's elections of the presidential election, whether it's election of new governors or election of senators, all kind of elections. Next general election, okay? As I mentioned, the first step is for us Kenyans to get a clear clarification, the interpretation of what our constitution says. When are we supposed to have the next elections, in order to see if we can recall these MPs and senators, because by the law, we can only do so before 12 months. Sorry, we cannot, because according to the law, we cannot recall them 12 months before the next general election. So if we have elections next year, that means we only have 1 month window, because we're in July. Then August is knocking on the door. So to Kifika August, we cannot recall them. By law, we cannot recall them. So we need a clarification by the courts. We need a ruling. The courts should interpret the constitution and tell us, when are we going to have the next election? Is it going to be 2026, as I argue, as I agree with lawyer Willis Otieno, or are we going to have it in 2027, as some people might argue, okay? So we shall wait and see. One thing I want to say about the election is this, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades. This is what I want to say about this coming general election, if we are going to have any, okay? One, okay? I've always said that this election is going to be rigged, okay? And it's not new. We know the only fair, free, transparent general election that we ever had was in 2002. The rest has always been marred by claims of rigging, foul play. We know that, okay? It's not up for debate, okay? That's why we always had this makelele after elections. Kibaki is the only one who was elected, rightfully so, okay? And the reason being, there was overwhelming support for Kibaki, okay? Now, and of course, by that time, I think Moi had given up, said he's not going to run, and he picked Uhuru Kenyatta. You know the story. I'm not going to rehash history. I believe you sitting here, anybody who's watching, you know the drill. Now, this coming election, it's kind of similar to what happened in 2007. You want IEBC commission to according to you. I don't understand what you're saying, Kibogong. Finish your sentence so I can reply to you. So this coming election that's coming, if we are going to have it, whether it's going to be next year or 2027, this coming election, okay, it kind of reminds me of what's happened in 2007. Why do I say that? The president, the current president, the incumbent, the sitting president, William Samoei Ruto. In fact, there's so much similarities. I've mentioned it in my previous videos. I'll mention it again for the umpteenth time, because you can only learn through repetition. I know you're smart, so I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but I just want to draw some parallels from Kibaki's administration and Ruto's administration. Similarities, okay? Ruto is very unpopular, okay? When he came in, when he was running for president in 2022, you know, everyone was tired of Uhuru Kenyatta. Let's not kid ourselves. I can see a lot of people on X and other social media, they're talking about, oh, you know, Uhuru was better. No. Uhuru was not better. He's actually not better than Ruto. You know, I'm not talking about 2007. I'm talking about 2002. The election in 2002 when Kibaki ran against Uhuru Kenyatta after Moi decided he's not going to run again. That's what I was referring to. I'm not referring to 2007. Kibogong, catch up, my friend. Anyway, so what I'm saying is this. Kibaki, during his first term, when after overwhelming support by the Kenyan people. The will of the people was with him. Everyone was supporting him. He came to power, and he started doing a few good things. You know, free education. We had a bump in economically speaking. You know, after 24 years of being shackled by Moi's brutal economic policies from World Bank, telling us policies that were stagnating our economy. When Kibaki came in, we were like, there was a sigh of relief. Okay, we had free education. You know, the economy seems to be improving after 24 years, and things were going well until first term of his administration, of his tenure. Okay, where he fell out with the NAC coalition, kind of fell apart with Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, and the rest. Well, actually, Martha Karua stayed with him. Raila Odinga and the rest, okay? His coalition partners, whatever the case is, after the MOU, okay? The Rainbow Coalition, or whatever the NAC, whatever you want to call it, okay? You know, after that, Kibaki returned to default settings, okay? Factory settings. Back to tribalism, downtown economic trajectory, corruption, extrajudicial killings, abductions, harassment of journalists, you name it. What exactly is happening with Ruto? Ruto came to power 2002, just like Kibaki. In my opinion, I think a lot of people were fooled by Ruto, given the fact that after 10 years of Uhuru's, rule, of course, Ruto was part of, Ruto was part of Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. But again, there was this fake beef between Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto, which fooled a lot of Kenyans and won Ruto's sympathy, from a lot of Kenyans, because they saw him being mistreated by Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, with Matiang'i of all people, who is now talking about he's being mistreated and whatever, traumatized by blah, blah, blah. But anyway, regardless. So he earned some sympathy from lots of Kenyans. And given the fact that people are tired of Uhuru Kenyatta with the corruption that was happening, extrajudicial, you name it, okay? Ukabila, it was bad. So after Ruto, fell out after the fake beef with Uhuru Kenyatta, people actually bought into this whole hustler narrative, and that won him the elections, because people are looking at Uhuru Kenyatta. Of course, Uhuru Kenyatta endorsed Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga, by that time, a lot of people just figured out that this guy was he was a broker. He didn't care about becoming president. His whole shtick was, as long as I'm, I have my red carpets, I enjoy the government goodies, Niko Nagari, I have my own convoy with banderas, and they have to stop traffic when I'm leaving, and just enjoying the trappings of power. Raila doesn't care about pesa yake. He doesn't care about being president, okay? And majority of Kenyans kind of figured that out after 2017, when he turned his back on Miguna, and a lot of Kenyans who supported it, who actually forced him to be sworn in as the people's president, since Uhuru Kenyatta actually stole that election. People were out there ready to die for Raila. So when he turned his back and got into the handshake, nobody really cared about him. That's why the election of 2022, people were like, we'd rather vote for Ruto in 2022 than vote for this con man who turned his back on us and got into a handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta, okay? So Ruto, I would argue, that had a good number, the majority of support of Kenyans, because they bought into this lie that he was actually having this his political difference with Uhuru Kenyatta. So they voted him in as the president. So 2 years into his term, and just like his predecessor, Kibaki, he started having problems. He turned his back on his supporters, and he started doing all these nonsensical things, borrowing something that he promised that he wouldn't do. Corruption was rampant, extrajudicial killings, Ukabila, so forth, so forth. The scourge that Kenya has been ailing from for years since 1963. Okay, so he was doing the same thing. So he was like, just like Kibaki, he started facing political hardship, political turbulence. Okay, in his administration, and it has been going on since. Okay, so now we are heading to the general election, whether it's going to be held next year, as I've said, or 2027. Again, we need the judiciary to actually interpret this constitution to make it clear when we are going to have the next general elections, okay? To avoid any kind of doubt or any clarity, lack of clarity, because that is enough to raise enough tension to send the country into a mess, fire. So Ruto is going to the next election, general election, whether it's 2027 or 2026. The fact is, the majority of the Kenyan people are not going to elect him. That's just a fact, okay? I don't care what kind of propaganda he can put out there and say that, oh, I'm working, I'm doing this. Kenyans have made up their minds, okay? Ruto must go. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Kenyans have decided they do not want you, Ruto. You can bring Raila on your side. You can use his goons to help you thwart the mandamanos, to trash the Gen Zs, or do whatever the case is. The Kenyan people have decided they do not want you. Just the same way as Kibaki in 2005, when we had that banana and orange thing. There was overwhelming support for the opposition. They wanted, not support for the opposition, but they wanted Kibaki out, basically. They were tired of Kibaki because the very things that we voted against when we were taking out Moi, when we were happy that we took out Moi in 2022, is the very things that Kibaki actually reneged on and went back on and was doing. So the same thing with Ruto, the very things he was criticizing Uhuru Kenyatta, saying that, he's Ukabila and all that stuff. Now it's the very same things that he's doing, borrowing and all this corruption and extradition, killing, killing protesters and all that, whatever. You know the list, okay? So, in the next general election, even though he has handpicked this IEBC, okay, and they are most likely going to declare him president, it's going to be a rigged election. What seems to be inevitable is they are going to be chaos. We are going to have chaos, okay? And it can take different forms or shape. It can be chaos in form of post-election violence. It can be chaos or anarchy in form of the majority of people deciding Ruto has to go. And they will roam the streets. And if they have to fight the goons in the streets that are hired by Ruto and Raila, or whatever the case is, it's going to be chaotic after the elections is announced that Ruto has won, after he has rigged himself. Because like I say, based on evidence, Ruto, you're not going to win this election. Okay? The only peaceful way we can have a peaceful democratic transition to the next whatever is if Ruto resigns. Aseme tu, mimi nimekubali, I'm not even running, I'll put somebody else, then we have a free, fair elections, okay? And even so, that's not guaranteed that we shall not have chaos, because whoever he chooses, people might see as a puppet, okay? So, like I said, it's going to be chaotic. There's going to be a confrontation, political confrontation in the future after the next general election, whether the election is being held in 2026 or 2027. We are going to have that. That's something that is guaranteed. That's why I usually argue this. I always make this point. I would rather have the Kenyan people, represented by Gen Z, have a popular revolution where it's the organic movement, a grassroots organic movement, revolutionary movement that gets to decide the next IEBC commissioners who are in turn going to preside over the next general elections, where we choose a new breed of politicians that are led by the Constitution. They pledge fidelity to the Constitution. I'm not one of those people who will tell you, we just need new Gen Z. We need Gen Zs to be part of the government, or to join the government, or to be elected. We need to elect more Gen Zs. That's not the solution. You know, electing young people is not the solution to our problem. Our problem is that we need people who will uphold the Constitution, will make sure that this Constitution is upheld, is respected, is implemented, is reinforced to the T. No compromisation, no compromising about that. People of integrity in the first place, because that's what the Constitution demands. You have to pass chapter 6, chapter 10 of the Constitution. You cannot go up there running for a public office while your resume is riddled with scandals of corruption, scandals of criminal behavior. You cannot be someone like that, because you can be easily blackmailed. When you get to Ninio, just like half of the, if not 90% or 95% of these members of parliament and senators in Kenyan parliament. That's why you wonder why they cannot act on your behalf. They cannot represent you. They cannot uphold the Constitution. They don't even read it. They don't even understand it. They don't even understand policy. They don't even attend parliamentary sessions, but they still get paid handsomely and enjoy the benefits of being a representative, while they don't actually do their job. I mean, Oscar Sudi says this in public, saying that I do not have to go to the parliament. I have better things to do. Ukarabati. Why should I go to the parliament? It's a waste of time. While he was voted to go up there to represent his constituency, but he's telling you he doesn't even need to go there and talk. For what? He has better things to do. But he was voted to go up there to represent. See what I'm saying? And it takes the whole year. This guy barely shows up in parliament, has never spoken in parliament, has never sponsored any bill. You see what I'm saying? So we have our ass backwards. We have our priorities mixed up. So which way is the guaranteed way in which we can make sure that the people we elect, whether it's the president, whether it's the governor, whether it's the MCA, ward, women rep, senator, MP, is going to make sure that they uphold the Constitution, they follow it. They are people with integrity. How can we can be assured that this is going to be the case? These people will do that. What guarantee do we have? The first step is that we, the people, have to demand that whoever is going to represent us in any capacity, whether it's the MCA, women rep, ward leader, whatever the case, MP, senator, governor, president, and even the judicial system, the judiciary, judges, have to pass chapter 6 of our Constitution. You cannot have a situation where you have like Ruto and Uhuru, who had a case, ICC, a serious case at the ICC, and they still bulldoze their way into running for presidency, intimidating the IEBC, saying that they haven't been charged yet, so they can actually go ahead and run for president. You cannot make that argument. You cannot bully your way to the system. So the onus is on the Kenyan people to demand that the constitution will be implemented fully as it was intended. It has to come from the people. Mnasikia? Or else the political class will play the same games that they have been always playing. Okay? They will hire their guns for hire lawyers, interpret the law whichever way they want, and rule you and convince you that we have a democracy or a constitutional democracy. While basically, in reality, this is nothing but dictatorship, pure dictatorship. At this point, we might be living under theocracy. You have a president who's building a church worth 1.2 billion at the State House. So it has to come from the people. That is why I always make my argument that if the process of electing this representative is flawed, given the fact that the IEBC commissioners have been handpicked by these very corrupt political elites of Kenya, don't expect anything new or different, because these people, individual Erastas and the gang, are put there to guarantee that they choose and declare leaders that comes from the same or have been handpicked, chosen by the corrupt political elites. The person who declares a winner of the election is the person who counts the votes, not the person who's voting. Don't fool yourself. The referee decides the game. Nani ameshinda? Unaweza kufunga bao 10 na referee atasema ni offside zote. Lakini ile timu nyingine ikifunga bao moja hata kama ni offside, referee akisema wameshinda, ni bao ni bao. You understand? That's why there is importance in the people leading the movement, not only the movement, demanding that this social contract we have that is called the Constitution is followed and is implemented to the T. You cannot have individuals who behave as if they are above the law. The Raila Odingas, the Uhuru Kenyatas, the William Samoei Ruto, the Martha Karuas, the Eugene Wamalwas, the Kalonzos. These guys don't care. They will sit and try to convince you and hire some people to attend their meeting and say, oh, we are going to change the Constitution because the problems that we have requires a change in the Constitution, because they want to manipulate you into believing that changing the Constitution to create positions for their buddies and their family members is going to be beneficial to you. And they're doing that by exploiting the people who do not know better, are living in abject poverty with little to no education, barely literate. That's why they don't want you to have higher education. They don't want you to read. They don't want you to be educated and reason, because you'll be a threat to them. You'll see. They want to be able to come to you and tell you your problem is that community has been in power for 34 years. That is why you are suffering. So vote for me so that we can finish this cycle of being ruled by that community. And 2 months after that, you'll see him or her meeting the leader of that community that is talking about. They're sitting and they're laughing and then, after you people have killed each other, kiukabila. What am I saying without so many words, without going to ranting? This IEBC is not, even though it has been approved by the judiciary, it's not going to deliver. And I'm not saying this to mean that he has to deliver in my favor or the people's favor or the whatever favor. The IEBC should be independent. But if the people who have handpicked these people are already compromised individuals with deep ties, business ties, of familial ties, what do you expect? That's why the solution to Kenya has to be a popular revolution. That's the only way to reset the whole system. Popular revolution. Because a revolution by the people is people exercising their democratic sovereign authority that has been enshrined in the Constitution, that is above any law or any man of the land. That is what our Constitution is saying. Our voice as a people is stronger than anything, even Ruto or this Raila or these oligarchs. That is why they're fighting so hard, using ukabila, using goons, using the police force to scuttle any kind of gathering, unity that we may have, us coming together in one purpose to take back this sovereign power that we did what? That we donated to them. Because they understand that if we are to take back our power and stick to the 2010 Constitution as it was intended, majority of them shall end up in Kamiti, Kodiaga, and other prisons in Kenya, because they're nothing but criminals who are pretending, charlatans, pretenders, pretending to be leaders, but they're criminals. Ruto is a criminal. Murkomen is a criminal. Raila is a criminal. Martha Karua is a criminal. Gachagua is a criminal. Uhuru Kenyatta is a criminal. Musyoka is a criminal. These are not leaders. These are criminals behaving as leaders or tribal chieftains. And they use their influence and money to divide us. But they are nothing but criminals. Waizi, criminals. They're not politicians. A politician, a president comes to TV and says that if you see somebody doing it, shoot them in the leg. Only a criminal can say that. Then Koech, Nelson Koech, or whatever his name is, came up and said, don't even shoot them to shoot to kill. And they're walking around in their convoy. Unawacha na mtawapigia makofi wakizungumza. These people should be lynched by the public, put wachomwe na tairi na mafuta taa. Just by saying that alone. These are criminals. These are not human. Murkomen is a criminal. Atuoli is a criminal. Hata ukiona hiyo tumbo yake imejaa minyoo. This is a criminal state. Raila is a criminal, pretending to be standing with the people. Martha Karua is a criminal who is taking money from George Soros, pretending to be representing sijui nani huko Uganda, and coming back. You saw her interview. She can barely speak English. A criminal, even if you look at her eyes, Martha Karua is a criminal, pretending to be a sijui iron lady. Kalonzo Musyoka Kalonzo Musyoka anajifanya na ile koti yake ati sasa yeye ndio mtu mzuri. Sijui nini. Ati amenyoa nywele na amevaa koti mpya. Yeye na Eugene wana ati muungwana. A criminal masquerading as a politician. Na utaona wanataka kuchange constitution. Wataenda kukutana huko sijui Bomas. I've heard Bomas wants to wanataka kuchange Bomas ikuwe mall. Utaona wataita ninio Serena Hotel, wamekaa huko na air conditioner. Na wanalipwa 1 million every day to hold that meeting. Wakiongea vile watachange hii constitution ndio wagawe hiyo mali ya Wakenya. Duale is Al-Shabaab, a terrorist who needs to be in committee. Why are you clapping at these people when they talk? They're not educated. I'm not saying education is the only thing that can guarantee you success, but I'm saying hata ukiwapima akili hao watu wana akili. Kenya is burning, mtu anakuambia ati we need a dialogue. NADCO ilituletea ninio, ilituletea peace. What did NADCO achieve? Si ulikuwa unataka NADCO, sijui na national sijui I don't know what dialogue. Sasa unatuletea mbia ati sijui unatua conclave intergeneration madau. Criminal behavior. Kuwazungusha tu hivi. Kuwazungusha. Gachagua. Murima. Kwani wewe peke yako ndio umetoka Murima? There are a lot of valiant, heroic Kikuyus who stand for the right thing, who stand for the constitution. And they're standing for their love of the country, even the love for their people. But they don't try to politic based on their tribe. Because they understand the struggle of Kamau is the struggle of Otieno. The struggle of Otieno is the struggle of Nani? Nyongesa. The struggle of Nyongesa is the struggle ya Nani? Ole Tip Tip. The struggle of Ole Tip Tip is the struggle of Kipchoge. The struggle of Kipchoge is the struggle of Mumo. The struggle of Mumo is the struggle of Nyaribo. But wanacheza na hiyo kabila. Because that's the only thing that they have left, as I've always been telling you here. Hiyo ndio kitu wamebakia nayo. Ni kujifanya tu. So we have to deal with these people. Hatuwezi kuwaacha. So ndio maana nawaambia, constitution has to be, and the only people, ndio maana nawaambia kitu, freedom and constitution is something that you have to, mpaka ukue vigilant, you have to demand it. Ni kitu ambayo ukikaa dormant haitakuwa implemented. Unaona? Hata unaona kama hawa watu wa ninio, these representatives, the senators and members of parliament, they are supposed to make sure that the constitution is fully implemented and upheld, even the executive branch of government. But you cannot just depend on them to do so. You have to demand that it is upheld. If you don't demand it, they won't do it themselves. Hao wataenda tu kujitengenezea mambo yao. Ndio maana unaona wanachinjana kama Kasipul, wanajaribu kupigana ndio waingie wakuwe senator. Go look at this senatorial political elections. Ama MP, mtu anapigania MP. Wanauana. Because they understand that once they become members of parliament, they'll only vote to increase their salaries. Lakini maendeleo, your interest takes a back back ninio, goes to the back burner. Karibu sana Gypsy Corner. Your interest goes to the back burner. Hao wanataka pesa tu, lakini wakiona sasa mnataka kuwatoa, because they understand that this constitution calls for justice. But again, the only way to make the constitution work is if the people demand that it is fully implemented and upheld. Just like I usually tell my Christian brothers and sisters, the Bible is a book that God uses to communicate with mankind. But the Bible is nothing but words if you don't act on what it says. If it says love your enemy, love your neighbor, you should love your neighbor. You should take action so that it comes alive. The power of what's in the book becomes alive and operational if you take action. Same as the Constitution. You don't vote a pinhead to become a member of parliament and expect them to actually uphold this constitution if they don't even know what's in the constitution. They don't even know what it is. They don't even get the concept of a constitutional democracy. Then you expect them to actually go there and represent you. Sasa Ruto akikuja na pesa yake ile ameiba, akiwanunua, then what? So you understand? Ndio maana it has to come from the people, ground, grassroots. Ndio maana nasema Kenya haihitaji election. It needs the people to come together and chart their way forward. We have the solution. Solution iko, suluhisho iko. Si lazima tupigie suluhu sima tuwapatie suluhisho. Tuko na suluhisho. We have the solution. And it's not your conclave, sijui intergeneration conclave. Hiyo ni upuzi. Hiyo ni upuzi ya Raila Odinga to change the constitution. Hataki na asitulete na tusibebe. Thank you. IEBC body which works for the government instead of ninio. Hebu acha niweke kwa hiyo comment hapo hivyo. Yeah? Instead of overlooking, give me strength. Absolutely. It has to come from the people. Suluhisho mpaka itoke kwa wananchi. And we know the solution. Unajua shida yetu wa Kenya, wacha niwaambie kitu kingine. Let me tell you something, guys. Shida yetu, we know what the solution is, lakini because tunazungushwa na ukabila na ukarabati, we want to go around the solution. Tunajifanya ati, oh, you know the problem is we are voting for bad leaders. Oh, you know the problem is we don't have laws that address this. Oh, you know the problem is the people who are advising the president. Oh, you know what the problem is? The people who are advising Raila Odinga. Oh, the problem is the people who are advising Mount Kenya. Oh, the people who are advising Nyanza, Luo Nyanza. Yani we want to scuttle around the problem, lakini hatutaki kuface the main problem. The problem is the constitution. The problem is the law. Our members of parliament, or our senators, or our MCAs, or our governors wanapora mali, or our sijui nini. Yani, and we spend a lot of time talking about things that do not address the root cause of our problem. Or the problem is that we borrow too much, so it brings corruption, and it brings... The constitution is there, and it describes under what circumstances are we supposed to borrow, and the process in which we should do so. It has to go through the parliament. And the parliamentarians should consult with the people before they even approve or disapprove that loan. But does that happen? No, it does not happen. Mtasema tu hakuna, wacha walinio, sina Ruto anakuja kutuletea ninio barabara hapa ya lami hapa ninio sawa Gongo, kuna shida, wacha haya ninio. Si nani pia aliomba pesa. That's how we argue, kwa sababu of our mentality ya ukabila na ukarabati. Kila mtu wants to be rich, kila mtu anataka kuwa mheshimiwa, so unaingia ukarabati na mambo mengine kwa sababu you want to be rich, you want to be, unataka mheshimiwa. Kila mtu, hata wewe pia ukiongea watu wanakupigia makofi na uko na bendera na convoy na unaitwa kwa news uongee. That is what we want. You don't see the bigger picture. I'm telling you. The problem is most Kenyans have moved from medieval era corruption, bribes, and Ruto's dining hall that has temptation like crap. Absolutely. Yeah. That's why sometimes I'm startled. Unapata mtu wako educated. And by the way, educated is not a measure of intelligence. I've met a lot of educated fools. Mtu ambaye amesoma, hata aliishi majuu, unakaa naye chini unamuuliza, wewe, why are you voting for this particular leader? Somebody who has been embroiled in corruption scandals since birth. Why are you voting for this leader? And what makes you think that if that leader becomes the president, there'll be anything different from Ruto? Alafu unasikia, unaona uchali. What actually basically drives them is ni ukabila. Ni ukabila. Ni ukabila na ukarabati. But how do you solve that? Kuna constitution ambayo addresses all that. Vile mweneo zote za Kenya zinafaa zipate equal distribution of wealth. National wealth, that is. Opportunity should be given to everybody. Laws that govern how we choose our elected officials. They are there in the books. Hawezi kupata mtu anapiga mtu bunduki alafu anaenda anakuwa lawyer, anakuwa representative. Constitution inasema we only have 4 minutes, CSS 24 maximum, 22 I think, 22 maximum. Why do we have the people like Musalia Mudavadi? Cabinet constitution how many ninio? Why? Kwa sababu nani? Some people feel they are above the law. Sisi ni serikali. Ukisema ngwe, tutakutumia polisi wa kuchareza bunduki. Na rais anasema ati unafaa uchapwe bunduki kwa mguu. Criminals running your country. Unaelewa? But you'll spend a lot of time speaking about personalities. Ati sijui Embakasi, wewe unaona nani atashinda Embakasi? Embakasi mimi nikiangalia sijui nani, Babu Owino mimi nikimwangalia ametosha tu. Hata Babu Owino can be future president. Ukimwangalia vizuri atakuwa tu president. Kiambu nafikiri nani atakuwa? Kikuyu MP, Ichungwa can be president. Ichungwa kwa sawa. Ichungwa. Unaona Ichungwa aliandika sijui nini, alifanya kazi na very corrupt people. Saa ingine mimi hata naangalianga mambo hata I lose hope sometimes. This government is full of characters. Please mention one squeaky clean within reason. There's none. There's none from this administration. None of them. Including the whole opposition. None of them. None of them. And that tells you that the suluhisho mpaka itoke kwa wananchi through this Gen Z movement. And Gen Zs should stand up and make it a Kenyan thing. Waseme hii ni patriotic Kenyans ambao are standing to defend their constitution. Let's not fall into this that this is a Kikuyu uprising. Nini. In fact, if I was part of the organizers of Gen Z, nane tulikuwa na tuseme ati vijana wote wa kabila zote, we are having a concert at Uhuru Park. Let's meet up. It is about all tribes meeting in Nairobi CBD for for nane, sorry. I would come up with something like that to show solidarity with every tribe, Kikuyus, Luos, Luyas, wa vijana wote Gen Zs of all tribes wakutane CBD nane. I thought I spotted you singing welcome song at Seattle. Welcome. Ay. Gypsy kona unaniua. Before you, I can't. You will never catch me greeting any politician like that. Yeah? Mimi angekuwa katika Chagwa anakuja kunitembelea namtumia Uber. Naambia Uber, ukiona mtu na kipara huko na kuna cowboy ninio na ni mweusi, huyo ni Gachagua. Umweke kwa Uber akuje umlete nyumbani. But it will be interesting. I had his in a tour and he'll be engaging with the public. I'm here to see his itinerary because I want to, and if I do go to one of his Ninio, I will nitakuja live to Ninio. Nitai broadcast live on my Ninio. So but yeah, so let's wait and see if where Gachagua will be, so we can maybe tunaweza kutana. Like I say, if anyone who knows Gachagua, reach out to me. Mimi nataka kumuuliza maswali. I have questions for him. We'll be respectful and we'll be very, very cordial. Anyway, guys, it's been 1 hour. Thank you so much for joining. If you are going to watch this on repeat, please do the same. Do this. Share, like, subscribe, comment, do all the good stuff. Put the notification button on. I would like to thank Annie, Gypsy Corner, na watu wengi. Let's see. Be nice before you get the interview. Yeah, you give us a hela kabla uende nagash. Listen, I'll never align myself with a Kenyan politician. That is hiyo kitu nimesema. Never. Hata wanipatie hiyo 1.2 billion ambao wanataka kujenga nao kanisa. Never. Atikuje na ni hata unaniwa huko. Ati mimi can you imagine ati nikuja hapa siku moja sasa mimi pia na support ati sijui na support Gachagua ama na support sijui nani. Hiyo ndio siku. Hiyo hata afadhali nifunge channel niende kazungumza mambo mengine bwana. Ati nikuja hapa niwaambie ati Gachagua tosha. Ama nikuja hapa niseme sijui Ruto tosha. Ama Raila tosha. Ama Martha Karua tosha. Bana. Hiyo ni hata afadhali sana sijui nifanye nini, which ones? Hebu niambie. Which one have been rooted out? Unajua, the good thing about being subjective and being truthful. Hawajafika bei. Ni wewe. Ati haja. Waongeze kidogo. Ni acha kuchekesha bwana. You made my day. Wena nani? Wena Gypsy Corner. Ati hawajafika ile bei, Lakini saa ingine nyinyi they all pretend to be until Kasongo my lips are sealed. Yeah, that's how it is. Kenya is a democratic sovereign multi-party state. Haya, Labani naye ameingia. Sawa Labani. Habari ya Kipkorgot Labani. Lakini nyinyi mnachekesha. Wanasemanga everyone has a price. Lakini pesa ya Kasongo mimi siwezi chukua. Pesa kwa sababu you know why? Hizo ni proceeds za corruption. In Kenya watu wanadu 500k. 500k hata 500k ni 500k ni kaa 500,000 hiyo ni kaa 50k dollars. Hiyo ni pesa kidogo sana bwana. Unajua nini? The problem ya mimi hata trillion ni hiyo haijatosha. Mimi you know the problem of ubaya kuchukua nini hizi let me tell you something, the downside of taking bribe hata kama ni bilioni 10. The problem with that is once you accept that money, first of all hiyo pesa imelaaniwa. Kwa sababu hiyo ni pesa ya Wakenya na imeibiwa. So unachukua pesa ya kutoka kwa mwizi. Number 2, once you receive that money, you'll never have any credibility. Hawezi kusimama mahali ati uongee uanze kuambia watu juu ya demokrasia and anti-corruption. Hiyo imeisha. You cannot tell anyone about corruption or demokrasia ama sijui principles of democracy. Kwa sababu once you have taken that money, all your credibility imeisha. I would rather have the little credibility that I have, full of integrity, niseme ukweli vile naiona without taking anybody's side, hata kama natukanwa, hata kama watu wanaona nini, but I feel good, I feel in my niko na peace ya ndani nikijua kwamba nimesema ukweli. I don't have to live in a mansionette na niendeshe gari kubwa kubwa na watu wananipigia makofi, watu wananiabudu, so I can feel like a person. Niko fiti vile niko. Wacha ni struggle kivyangu. Niende nifanye kazi huko mkazi ya mjengo, nipate pesa zangu hapo na niko fiti. But I have integrity. Unaona? Ndio maana nasema hivyo. Absolutely. Thank you very much. No money can buy credibility and moral. Absolutely. Niliona Epstein Files huko pia niliona. Epstein ilikuwa huko bwana. The head of FBI ana date Mossad agent. You kama mshasikia hiyo. So yeah. Silver and gold have I not. Ni Peter alisema hivyo, Petro ama ilikuwa nani? Silver and gold have I not. But nitawaletea ukweli wa Yesu Kristo. So money, tengeneza pesa yako. You can always make money. Unaona? Pesa ni kitu unaweza kutengeneza. Na si lazima, you don't have to have $1 billion to be happy, my friend. So haina maana uchukue pesa ya mtu amelaniwa hata kama ni bilioni ngapi. It will just bring curse on you. Pesa imelaniwa. Watu ni, first of all, acha niwaambie, most of these politicians wa Kenya, most of them ni madevo. So wanakupatia pesa ambazo zimetoka kwa shetani huko. Zimeombewa na zinakuletea laani. Unachukua hiyo pesa na wiki moja umekufa. So no. Ya Bonjino naye ameingia huko, aliingia na huko na ninio na sahihi. Hata hao pia waliambiwa wasitoe kitu, wasiseme kitu. So yeah, so that's what I'm saying. But unajua Kenya, I mean, I understand, I'm not saying that I support it, but Kenya unajua watu, you have unaishi kwa country ambayo absolutely ati ni clone but like, yes, that's why you have to choose your side. Unajua Kenya kuna poverty ni mbaya. The poverty level ni there's very little opportunities. So mtu akikuletea 500k, you lose your mind, okay? But nchi za nje, you know, unaweza kuanza biashara if you're hard working. Unaweza kuanza biashara and you can become a millionaire. No, I mean, it will take you time, but it's worth it. Yani kuna opportunity. Hata ukifanya kazi mbili, you have 2 jobs, you can make decent living, you know. Of course, ni job, it's not a glorified job, but you can do things, you know? Unaweza send money nyumbani, unaweza kununua nyumba, unaweza kununua gari, unaweza, you see what I'm saying? Yani, if you're willing to work and put the shift in, you can live well. You don't need Ruto kupatia bilioni 10. See what I'm saying? And you can do all that while you're still preaching the truth. So, yeah, that's why no, never. In fact, I won't entertain. The only thing I will entertain from these politicians is an interview, because I want to ask them why they're letting the Kenyan people down. And I'll interrogate their resume. Niangalie kwa nini. Kwa nini wewe unasimama hivi na unasema hivi na tumejua historia yako. That's the only thing I would do. But as far as that is you associate now ati na support sijui nini, no, my friend, no. Kaa na hiyo pesa yako, my friend. Pesa kaa nayo. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't want to choke on my blood money. Absolutely. That's true. So yeah, Kenya, they're buying even the existing and thriving ones. Yeah. Wale waninio. Absolutely. Yeah, even Kenya people can renew, but the problem is the government in a stifle easy jobs. Ulisikia Ruto jana anasema ati sijui I will make sure sijui I will send 1 million Kenyans to find jobs abroad. Huyo ni president anaongea. Instead of creating jobs in Kenya, yeye ana promise watu jobs in other countries. Like what? Boss. Right. So that's yeah. Anyway, WS Banka pia namuona anaingia hapo saizi. Sasa mnaingia saa zile mimi niko karibu kumaliza maneno, nafunga duka. Lakini karibu sana WS Banka, nice seeing you. It's been a while. No, well, it's not been a while. Nilikuwa na juzi. But yeah, nice seeing you. So yeah, if you guys have any information about Gachagua, please link up. Nataka kuona Gachagua. Nimuulize maswali. I want to interview him. Misi Obina nitaenda kumuuliza ati why are you sijui nini. Swali itakuwa kali. After two questions utaona Gachagua anasema haya, interview iishe tafadhali. Yeah. But unasemaje? What? Ruto is obsessed with building people's guns. Absolutely. Yeah. But anyway, guys, I have to leave it here. Nimeenda hata more than 1 hour. Hey. Aya. So Ani, WS Banka, Gypsy Corner, Laban, Misiani, nani wengine? Nyote. Nashukuru for being part of this. I hope we get this. Again, like I say, this IEBC sounds good, but they're very clever. The timing is suspect. Okay. And again, I think the next question is we need clarification from the judiciary, from the judges, from the judicial arm of government to give us an idea of when we are supposed to have the next election. Is it 2026 or 2027? I want to hear about that. But anyway, guys, I'll leave it here. My name is Kenya Revolutionary. Thank you so much, everyone. WS Banka, Annie, Gypsy Corner, Laban, and everyone else who's been watching on the background quietly, and everyone else who's going to watch this on repeat. I will talk to you guys later. Enjoy your weekend. It's Friday. And by the way, on Sunday there's a big game. PSG versus Chelsea, for those of you who watch soccer. But anyway, thank you so much. I'll see you guys later. Maybe you might catch me on and Brother Benson too for stopping by. I might hop on Brother Benson's channel later today if he's going to have a session. Nitoe point yangu 2-3 na tuendelee na maisha. Ama namna gani? Sawa basi. Thank you so much, guys. Peace and blessing and stay safe. Ama namna gani? Haya basi, barikiwa.